Hello, you can see the beautiful Levi behind me today, and I'm going to be talking today about the Hendurance hike, which is one of the big fundraisers we're trying to do for the uh, Project Hen Haven fundraiser. So it's been really strange for me lately because I always feel quite uncomfortable with fundraising. The hen rescue is my life, so it feels very personal, and when things fail that I put out there, it feels personal, and when things succeed. So it has been strange, but I've had to get used to it. I've had to put myself out there and get hustling, because ultimately it's not about me, it's about the hens. Last night I was on Facebook. It's one of those things that I would definitely avoid if I could, but it's essential to run the hen rescue, to find homes and to get funding and to share stories with the animals. And I was scrolling through and I saw 3 really upsetting posts, and it put me in such a bad mood. And one was a poor darling pig that was being trucked into Fearman's slaughterhouse in Canada. And this is the disgusting slaughterhouse where the activist Regan Russell was murdered by being run over by a truck. But let's not forget that, millions of pigs are murdered there too. And this darling, like her face and the wounds all over her body, I just had this moment of, how does everyone not see this picture and immediately make changes and go vegan and make saving animals their entire life? Here's Frida to cheer us up. Hello, Frida, gorgeous girl. Frida actually fell off a slaughter truck, so she knows what that poor pig was going through, but thankfully she escaped the fate by falling off and ending up here with us. And then I saw another post, which was a fellow rescue group who I do support, but who don't give chickens the vet care they need. And they were taking a number of chickens to be put to sleep, when I know that there were things that they could have done to treat them. And it just underlined the way that we think of chickens in society, where even some vegans just don't get it. Hello, Levi. Levi's having a waddle. And then I saw a post just before I was going to head to bed, where a council in the south of Sydney, Georges River Council, are putting out leg hold traps for foxes. And people seem to think these are more humane because they're not steel jaw traps, which is where the metal clamps directly onto the leg. They're padded, but the pressure on the leg is immense. And can you imagine the terror the animal would feel? And they're right to feel it, because they would die. And they're still gnawing up their legs and everything. So I immediately wrote them an email, like kind of pretending to be a resident of the area, showing how disgusted I was with the use of both the traps and 1080 bait. But it was another one of those moments of like, how do we live in a world where all of this is possible? Anyway, I'm sharing that with you because when I see these things, I get really overwhelmed. I get really angry and down. But I also feel this kind of frustration with the world and this urge just to change things and to do whatever I can. And the Hen Haven is such an important part of that. And I'll be making a video coming up about the education part of this, because yes, it's so important to shelter the individuals and to give them sanctuary for life, like Levi, the gorgeous Levi, who's currently chatting to Patsy. Can you see Patsy there? They are friends, but I give them time apart just because Levi can be a bit enthusiastic with the mating. So we just give Patsy some time out. But it'll actually be less of an issue with the Hen Haven, because they'll have a bigger area, they'll have a bigger pond, there'll be more ducks. So Patsy won't have to deal with all of Levi's affections. Anyway, that was all a big kind of tangent from what I'm actually talking about today, which is something a bit lighter. And that is the Hendurance hike that I'm doing. And the reason I'm talking about that today and in relation to those things is because the reason we're doing something so huge is to represent the hugeness of the task that we're up against. Like, saving animals, changing the world for animals, providing sanctuary to animals are really big things. And the financial goal we've set ourselves is a big thing as well. 150,000 Australian dollars. But it's doable. The money's out there, and I believe it should be directed into not just us, but other sanctuaries and vegan advocacy programs. And I hope that there'll be lots of room for collaboration in the future, because I just want all rescue groups to succeed. because we've all got the same aim, you know, apart from, look, I'm not including the ones that barbecue cows and chickens and other animals to try and save dogs and cats. But the hike, let me tell you about the hike. So it's 276 kilometers on the Great North Walk. And the Great North Walk, it's not a walk. It is a hike and a half. It is a trail. The terrain is rocky, it's hilly, it's full of creeks, and oh my goodness, it's so much. So we've done some practice hikes. It's going to mean 6 days, or I think it's 6 nights and 7 days away from the animals, and David, my husband, will be caring for them. But it's a lot of pressure on him, even though he's working from home. So whilst I'm confident that mentally I can just force myself to get on with that physical challenge, even though I'm not exactly an athlete, I am worried about leaving the animals. So what I've done is I've changed it so that if I don't meet my fundraising goal of $27,600, which represents $100 per kilometre, I'm going to walk however much I raise. So if I was to raise $300, I would walk 3 kilometres on the Great North Walk. At the moment, it's around, I think, about 4,000, so about 40 kilometres. But I'm aiming for it to be the full amount. And so we've done some practice hikes, and it's beautiful. We're so lucky here in Australia to have such gorgeous wildlife and trees, and it's not bushfire season right now, so there's not that risk. And I get super excited if I even hear a wallaby. I'm still very British in that way, where every bit of Australian wildlife is just fascinating to me, and such a massive treat. But my practice hikes have not all been that easy. So the first one we went on, myself, Marcus and Sarah, 3 vegans, 3 activists. We started in Brooklyn, and it starts with this massive cement hill. And it goes up and up. And these two, rather than being like, this is massive, let's walk slow, they started charging up that hill as if it was nothing, as if it was just walking up this garden like this. See? It's not like that. It's like a massive challenge. I was trying to keep up, and they were talking. Like, how can you talk when there's this massive physical thing? I have okay fitness. I mean, I lug around 20 kilo bags of feed and stuff like that, but I'm not used to like practically running up these, like basically a wall. It's not even a hill. It's like a wall, just vertical. Just imagine that. And then Sarah, who's lovely and very caring, like looks back at me and goes, "You okay?" And of course, that's just like, no, I'm not okay. And do you know what? I had been trying to keep everyone's spirits up in our little hike group chat. Look, it's mental. It's like, we've got to think about this as far like a mental challenge and think of it for the animals, and we can get through it. So I didn't feel like I was able to be useless. So I started slowing down. I could hardly talk. I don't even have asthma. I felt like I was going to have an asthma attack. Marcus is very well known within our little group for communicating sarcastically. And we do that all the time, back and forth. So he was like, "Oh, I thought you were going to be so good at this. You always be talk." Well, I had what can only be described as a Biggest Loser meltdown. If you ever watched that show, you will know that there's always someone who, out of the poor, obese people who are forced to do these ridiculous challenges, that storms off, has a tantrum, lies on the floor, refuses to go any further. Well, that was me. Okay, I didn't lie on the floor, but I did say, "You want me to fail? I can't do it." I actually cried. I couldn't believe it. Like, I'm about 200 meters into this 30-kilometer practice hike we were doing that day, and I had tears rolling down my face. Oh my gosh. At least I didn't storm off. Anyway, the rest of the hike did get better from there, although I realised that the terrain was way rockier than I thought. So after that, we were actually very evenly matched. And I realised I just have to go at my own pace. And they can wait at the top if they want, or they can keep walking if it's going to be like really difficult. The only reason I struggled so much is because I pushed myself to try and keep up. The rest of the walk, I was fine. I was even able to jog on the sandy flat bits. And I did take a slip because I didn't have proper shoes then, so I kind of slipped down the rock and bashed my funny bone on my elbow. But I've since got some trail shoes, which are great. Anyway, look, it was all much better after that. I did learn some things, like it takes so long because the terrain is so rocky. You're like clambering and scrambling up rocks and down rocks. It's not like, you know, you might take an hour to do 10 kilometers usually. It takes 3 hours, even if you're walking at a really strong pace. And that's just the way it is. Like, the terrain is ridiculous. So I set myself the challenge after that day of doing some more practice hikes, because my previous fitness thing has just been like jogging 5 kilometers around the roads around Mount Colah where I live. It's pretty hilly, but it's nowhere near as hard. So I did some on my own. The first one I did in the pouring rain, torrential rain. I thought I was wearing a waterproof jacket. Turned out it wasn't. It was just like waterproof jacket look, and it soaked me to the skin within 10 seconds. My next practice hike was the worst. I went on my own again. It had rained for a few days, and it was the day after. And I went on a different bit of the hike, and I didn't realise, but when you go to crosslands, there are lots of creeks to cross. And the first one I got to, I was like, oh, isn't this enchanting? I get to cross the creek. My shoes were waterproof. I kind of went up to my knees, shuffled along like a crab so I didn't slip. And I took a little video, and I'm like, this is so cool. Look at me, adventurer. Go around the side for a little bit, because you're always looking for the little sign, the little man, who I call Dickie. We call him Little Dickie, to show us the way. And it's such a relief, because some bits you just don't know which way you're going. And then you see him and you're like, yes. Anyway, so it took a while because I went the wrong way. And then I was like, hang on, I have to cross back over. And this bit was flowing faster, so I didn't take a video. I made sure my phone was in my bag, really concentrating. It came up to my thighs, and I was like, and I could feel the current kind of pushing my legs. Anyway, I got to the other side, and I did a little jog because it flattened out. My foot slipped, and within seconds, I had gone from jogging along to tumbling down the hill. My head was pointed towards the river. My feet were up in the air. I was staring into someone's home. I don't know, a wombat hole, a fox hole, I'm not sure. And a tree had very helpfully stopped my head from actually going in the water. So I thudded into it. I bashed my shin against something or other. And I was just lying there like, this is really great. Yeah, I'm so glad I signed up for this challenge. So I just, stood there for a second, or I should say lay there for a second before hoiking myself back up, kind of limping along a bit. I didn't do any serious damage. I just had a nice bruise along my shin. And I got to the end of the path eventually, and the whole thing was just like wetlands. And I was like, well, where's the path? I couldn't see any Little Dickie signs. And I looked around, like it was just wet. It was just wetlands. It was very pretty. So I walked back. I'm like, I must have missed a sign, because that's happened before. Walked all the way back to where I fell, back to the river. No, there wasn't anything. So I ended up walking all the way back to that wetlands and realised that the path was just flooded. Like, I needed to walk through it. So I did. And when I got to the boardwalk where I could jog along, I was so relieved, because it was this open bit. It was pretty. It was lovely. And I was like, yes, I'm through the river. I fell over and I'm fine. I found my way. And I was kind of battling the light. I wanted to get home in time to do the animals. So that's why I was running as much as I could. I loved it as I got higher and higher, because I got away from the sound of that running water. Because it's a little bit scary going through. Like, I don't want to fall and no one's with me. And then it goes down again, because this is what this trail does. It goes up and down and up and down. And I came to another bit of the river. And this bit, I was now to the point where if I went back the way I come, I would have been crossing that river again in the dark, which I was pretty worried about doing, because I barely found my way in the light. And if I kept going, this bit was really tumbling. Like, it was going over the rocks, creating a mini waterfall. And it was pretty deep. So I start crossing, make sure my phone's up in the top of my backpack so it doesn't get wet. And like walking, edging along, trying to hold onto a rock. And I got to kind of the middle. I'm like, this isn't going to work. If I take one more step, I'm going to be pushed down the river. And what am I going to do? So I could feel the current pushing myself like really hard. Somehow I cannot do one pull up. I somehow found the strength to pull myself up onto the rock that I was below. And so I was sitting there in the middle of this river on a rock, looking back, thinking, I can't go back that way. There's nothing to hold on to. I can't keep going. I'm just going to have to sit here all night until tomorrow. And in the end, I saw there was another rock like slightly submerged under the water, which is all green and mossy. I ended up throwing myself onto my stomach in the water because it came up to about my chest, sliding along like a seal on the rock. And then I was like, yes, I've done it. Like I'm practically across, because from there I could get across. And I was literally talking to myself as I was going along, being like, yes, keep going up away from the water. But no, it just kept going round in and out of the water. It finally got to a bit where it was just, I wouldn't have been able to cross. There was a massive waterfall below it. It would have been super dangerous. But I managed to hang on to vines and go across the riverbank because I could see that it crossed back again. When I finally got to Mount Ku-ring-gai, where David was picking me up, which is only the next suburb from us, I was so relieved. I was drenched, of course. It wasn't even raining, but I was drenched from the river. And the finish of that was like the same hill going into Brooklyn. It was massive, but this time I didn't have a Biggest Loser meltdown. Instead, I plodded up slowly, and I was just so happy to be back. I've also done some practice hikes with Sarah where we took her dog into bits of the state forest that were beautiful. It was lovely. There were no dramas. But the reason I'm telling you about these experiences is just to tell you like what we're up against. And I think it's going to be a great challenge. I learned a lot. Like I'll be a lot safer. It'll also be safer with 2 people. We're going to rent a beacon from national parks just for safety reasons. And we will have a support person to meet us at different places, and we're going to try to arrange some accommodation now. But it was hard. It was so hard. Oh my God, this is not a walk, you know, this is a massive challenge. And so obviously I'm grateful for sponsorships. I'm doing the fundraiser through Facebook. Sarah's collecting hers through a Chuffed fundraiser page that I will put in below this video. But I have to keep in mind why we're doing this. We're doing this for the animals. We're only going to do the full thing if we reach the target. So it's not like, I don't want to leave them for not enough reason, if you know what I mean. But I think it's important to show how far we're willing to go physically to make this Hen Haven happen. I mean, this is so important. I can't wait to tell you about some of the education programs that we're going to be thinking of, and to get your feedback and your ideas on what we could do. I was going to maybe make a video on that today, but I thought, look, I really got down after seeing that stuff last night, which is always on social media because this stuff is happening to animals all the time. And I'm glad it's on social media, but sometimes I just get so overwhelmed. And I needed to focus today on something that I'm doing positive for the animals, which is this hike. But I will be back tomorrow to explain another bit of the Project Hen Haven. And I really appreciate you tuning in and the fact that you'd like to hear a bit more about what we're up to. Ask any questions, leave any comments. I would be so happy to hear from you. And one day I hope to invite you to our new Hen Haven and show you around and show you the beautiful animals that we've rescued and the education programs that we're implementing. So I hope you're having the most wonderful day. And from me and all the animals, most of whom are not in the background today, they're kind of hiding away. Even in that enclosure, Lentil and Patsy must be in the bushes. I've got Dylan. Let's see if I can show you him. Dylan the cat. He's there. Can you see him? In front of the washing line. He's enjoying the sunshine. But yeah, I will speak to you tomorrow. See you then.